So my friend Tara is a vegetarian.
Yeah.
But will only eat meat at my house.
Quiet, please.
Because the meat's so good.
Well, you do put a lot of effort into it.
And I was texting my friends pictures of the meat that I was going to be making. And
food porn, we call that.
It's a lot of food porn. Meat love on OnlyFans.
Meat love.
$3 a month. She responded to him, audibly while we were texting back and forth and said something to the effect of, "I'd love to eat CJ's meat."
Oh my.
Yeah, exactly.
Hello.
Gary told me the story that he was smirking and he went to pick up his phone and she was like, "Do not text him that," which I thought would have been great. But it's a very nice compliment to me as a guy who likes to make various meats.
3, 2.
Company presents a truly terrible podcast. Welcome to Nonsense, episode number 32. I'm Jeff Parker.
And I'm CJ Little.
This is our take on the week's business, tech, and entertainment headlines. This time, we'll take a deeper look at what Elon Musk is up to with Twitter, or X, or whatever he's calling it.
It's been a couple hours since I've looked.
It's National Spoil Your Dog Day.
I don't have a dog. Can I spoil yours?
Yes, it's a reminder to be good to animals everywhere.
That's shouldn't be a day. That should just be
I think every day we spoil our dogs. Anyone who has a dog, probably. Well, not anyone. I mean, actually, I've seen the commercials with the sad songs and all that.
Dog, yeah.
But everybody else, all the rest of us, any sentient thinking human is spoiling their dog.
Can I just pay them to not play the Sarah McLachlan music and show me the pictures of the dogs that makes me sad?
By all means, let's camp out on the sadness of it for this podcast just so we can bring everybody
let's start
down.
The energy out there. Let's make this as sad as possible.
My dog is a mutt.
He is a mutt, but he's a lovely mutt.
And I love that because he seems like he is healthier than any purebred I've ever met in my life. He's very durable. He's quite resilient to
Have you
anything.
met the royal family?
Yes.
It's pretty fucking bad.
Genetic diversity equals a good thing.
Exactly.
It is an amazing thing that like the what is it, American Kennel Club, AKC, has been advocating doing a terrible thing for decades.
Yeah, exactly.
Their idea of what is a good idea is precisely a horrible idea.
Somebody should give them a genealogy class.
Exactly.
Maybe like the ghost of Darwin should go visit them for a little bit.
By the way, they were very against using DNA to check the lineage of the dogs.
They were.
Because of course things have drifted and they're just kind of making it up.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Are you an old friend of ours? Well, then yes, your dogs are pure breeds. Are you not an old friend of ours? We don't know you.
Yeah,
no, your dogs don't
have
qualify.
All your dogs paid the $30 a year filing fee for whatever the fucking shit is to make sure that they're a registered bulldog.
Anyway, I'm a fan of mutts.
I'm also a fan
on
of
National
mutts.
Spoil Your Dog Day. No matter what kind of dog you have, spoil your dog. Also, today, if you're a camper, even if you're not, it's National S'mores Day.
I didn't know that s'mores got a day.
S'mores should get a week.
Well, no.
Like Shark Week. They should
only if it's followed by the insulin week, I think. There's a s'mores week and then an insulin week. My children made s'mores on holiday 2 weeks ago.
Yeah,
Typically, how do kids make s'mores? They take the marshmallow, they shove it on the fire
light the
until it's
marshmallow on fire.
Exactly.
Sure.
Then you gotta blow it out, and then dad's got to like eat the crusty black carcinogen,
right?
Which is terrible. My oldest son.
Not terrible. It's delicious.
No, not when it's
sugar,
black.
Well, not when it's black. But
That's what I mean. They make it on fire.
You can make it so it catches on fire and doesn't get all the way to black.
Well, my oldest son, who's watched me make s'mores several times, roasted it like methodically for 15 minutes. I was so proud of him. It was perfectly brown and gooey, and I was like, yes, I get to eat that. The fucking shit ate the whole thing.
Of course.
He put in the s'mores and ate the whole thing, and I was like, good for you for making it that way, bad for you for not giving daddy any.
If you're going to put that much effort into it, if you're going to go to that degree of...
Well, he's watched me smoke meat for 8 hours. I think he's got a good example.
He understands what OCD is all about.
Like, what's the original marshmallow test? You tell a kid they can have a marshmallow now, or they can have 2 in 10 minutes or something like that if they wait. I feel like my kid would pass that now. He'd just be there slowly roasting them.
I could wait forever. I could sit there and just
What if instead they're like, Jeff, you can have a share of Berkshire now or 2 shares?
That's how I live my life.
Exactly.
That's why I have the giant pile of shares.
You would just outweight them. I could sit there and stare at them.
I have infinite patience for things like that.
You're like, what if I wait 2 weeks? How many shares do I get?
By the way, I can sit there and watch the Berkshire shares descend in price.
Sure.
And it just don't care.
Just keep collecting them up.
Exactly.
All the way down. Yep.
They're getting cheaper to buy. That's a great thing. Count me in.
Yep.
I have infinite patience for that kind of thing. How's your week going?
I mentioned my kids. So something amazing happened recently. Just mind-bending. Usually they like to quote unquote help me with projects.
Well, sure.
Which means everything takes 3 times as long.
Of course.
This past week, they actually helped me put together IKEA furniture for them.
What age? What age is the
3 and 5?
3 and 5. That's the match because you have a 5-year-old.
I don't know.
The 3-year-old would never be able to help you by himself because he's imitating the 5-year-old.
100%.
Yeah.
They would hold a little wooden dowel so I could put the little wood glue on it. They would put the screws in the holes. They would help with everything. It was fascinating and lovely. So instead of getting 1 piece of furniture, I got 3 done.
Amazing.
The fun part was...
It's going to last for 2 minutes.
Oh, yeah. They've already taken it apart. My 5-year-old was helping, and I said, Max, hand me the bag of hardware.
Yeah.
a little IKEA bag, has a little shit in it. He looked at me and he said, Daddy, why is this hardware? Where's the software? And I had just explained to him, yes, a week previously, the difference between hardware and software.
Kind of ingenious.
And I just had to smile and be like, oh my God, he's remembered the hardware software conversation.
Yeah.
And it's now asking for the software.
It's just the same word.
But that's the bookcase. Yeah.
That's really cool, though.
Yeah, I told him it was all written in Python. He believed me.
All IKEA furniture is written in Python.
Yeah,
I get that.
But it's like make-believe Swedish Python. None of the words make sense. Anyway, how's your week?
I had a great week, actually. I had a really fun experience. A friend was coming to lunch with me, and he ended up bringing his son with him. I was just absolutely gobsmacked at this child.
Sure. How old?
He's going to USC Law.
Oh, okay.
In his 20s. And he's just studying and wants to study environmental law.
Awesome.
It's like, so not only is he like super smart, he's like super smart with going the right direction.
Yeah.
So it left me very optimistic about the future.
About the future?
What a great world.
And he's going to a great school.
Let's get to our headlines.
We should.
That sports broadcaster you hear could be AI.
This is so cool.
Artificial intelligence commentators are edging into roles in sports broadcasting.
This is great.
In major competitions such as the Masters Golf and Wimbledon Tennis, they're using tech to automatically narrate certain videos posted on the tournament's websites and apps. This is all stuff that wasn't being covered. Totally. It's not like they're replacing an announcer. They're finally putting an announcer on these clips.
The AI announcer for the Masters, have they trained it to also put me to sleep like the regular announcers? Just lulls me into a lullaby.
It's done afterwards, but it still kind of has those hushed whispering tones, like we don't want to affect his swing.
You know what's more amazing to me? Forget about the AI commentator for a minute.
Yeah.
The cameraman that can keep the camera trained on the ball when it's like a 300-yard drive, and it's just perfectly in frame.
And it's a white ball going up against a pretty much white sky. It's absolutely mind-blowing.
And it's doing like, 100 miles an hour? And they're just like, it's like perfectly tracked.
And it's perfectly framed.
Yeah, that's Al's been doing this for 40 years.
Absolutely incredible.
It's incredible.
And he's also got his hand on the zoom lever so that it's
focus. It's in focus the whole time.
Yeah, that is mind-blowing.
I'm just like, how do you do this? And you would think AI would replace that, but nobody wants to tell Al his job got replaced on that.
Nobody's going to replace Al for a long time. I mean, that's an amazing skill.
Anyway.
IBM generative AI provides golf narration for more than 20,000 clips on the Masters app.
That's pretty cool.
It's all things that they would normally just put up that they would not have commentary.
Yeah, sure.
And now they've got someone who's telling you what's happening.
I think there was a quote in this article where some other PGA announcer was poo-pooing it and said, well, they haven't figured out inflections yet, so therefore it's not human. I'm like, bro, you might not want to be hanging your hat on inflections because they're going to get that.
1 minute from now, they'll have inflections. That's not a big deal.
I want to be able to go to the PGA app and pick my announcer. I just want to, like always, I want to pick the Australian announcer, Samuel L. Jackson.
Sure. For me, it's all going to be Samuel L. Jackson
all the way down.
Samuel L. Jackson announcing golf would just be the greatest.
I would watch it.
Greatest thing in the world.
Like every week, I'd be like, I need to go watch this.
I have to say, I'm a fair weather golf watching fan.
If there's such raining, you don't watch it?
No, I watch when Tiger Woods plays.
Yeah, okay, because he's amazing.
Because he's absolutely he's not. He's been amazing for so many years. He's not.
Sure.
He's less amazing now. But he was, and obviously not necessarily a perfect person, but he was just so amazing to watch.
Sure.
Playing golf back in the day. It was like, oh yeah, I will watch that.
I'll always stop and watch if I see Rodney Dangerfield playing.
Well, sure.
That's always a good one.
Especially if he's playing with Ted Knight.
Totally. Chevy Chase in the background.
Android phones can now tell you if there's an AirTag following you. There's been apps that have been able to do this for a while, but now apparently it's
built into the
OS.
Yeah, that's great. That's good. That's basically their way of saying they're using a technology to detect a more superior technology nearby. Is that what
the
it's
AirTag
doing?
is more superior?
AirTag, I'm assuming. It's an Apple product. It must be. It's white.
Now Android users will be able to get those unknown tracker alerts. You're being followed.
Somebody is stalking you.
The creepy ones.
Yeah.
Someone is stalking you. Exactly.
Those are never fun.
The alerts currently work only with AirTags, but Google says it will work with tag manufacturers to expand its coverage.
The AirTags are not cheap, right? But if they were,
they aren't cheap. What are they? $25?
Like $30.
Nothing.
Not for this plan. If they were like $5, I'd want to just buy some and go stick them on people's cars. A little note that says, "When you find this, stick it on someone else's car," just to screw with folks.
I'm sure people are sticking them on various cars. I'm sure that's happening.
Yeah, but that's for like real stalker reasons. I just mean to screw with folks. I've been wanting to, like when we go out, I want to put AirTags in my kids' pockets. But I know my kids and they'll just pull them out and what is this? And then leave it somewhere.
Yeah, sure.
So I'm like, what I need is like a special pocket, like a stitch pocket that I can close quasi-permanently.
I have one when I travel in my toiletries bag. There's a little pocket on the outside that I never use. It's a tiny little pocket.
Put it in there.
And I put it right in there and who cares? Now I know where my luggage is at all times. Kind of a cool thing on the Google version. They encrypt the data, the location data, so that Google can never see it.
The location data you do not want to make clear text. That would be bad.
Not even not clear text. Literally, they can't even tell what it is on the server. You can tell as the user. Right. It's encrypted from them being able to know what's happening.
As it should be.
Which is great. Well, you'd think they would use that data because they use so much other data of things that you're doing. You'd think they would just throw that in the pile, but it's great that they're not doing that. While Apple and Google work together on avoiding malicious use of their tracking networks, which involves knowing what each other's tracker signals look like, their devices won't be able to work across the OS divide. That leaves companies like Chipolo and Tile having to make different versions of each device for the two companies' networks. That's horrible.
You can't natively use an AirTag on Android.
Right.
Vice versa. Yeah, I understand.
Guys, get along. Come on.
I mean, Bluetooth is hard. It's not it's a standard.
No, it's
completely
it's
a total standard.
And by the way, I can guess which of the two is not working with the other.
Exactly.
Phoenix record heat is killing off cactuses.
Okay, listen, world, when the cactus are fucking dying in the heat, we've got a real problem. I understand ice melting is complicated.
They're drying out from the inside out.
And what's crazy about this is they just they don't start to wilt.
Oh, there's no warning. They just fall over.
They're fine every day, and then they just fall over.
We're fine. We're dead.
I learned something else reading the story. I didn't know that the cacti, not cactuses. How dare you? The cacti at night open up their pores to exchange carbon dioxide when it's cool.
Yeah.
And because in Phoenix it's been 1,000 degrees at night, they can't do that. So they're these things are literally suffocating.
They had a record number of nights of 90-degree heat.
Yeah.
That's not a record you want to live near.
No. Like a record number of days over 110 degrees.
Yeah.
It's like them in Florida. Whoa. Florida's had water in the 101s.
Oh, that's just crazy. You get in the ocean, it's 101 degrees. That's miserable.
Yeah.
All those coral reefs are bleaching out.
Oh, yeah, sure. There is one nice perk.
What's that?
For lunchtime, you can just take pasta outside in a strainer and just put it in the ocean.
You don't have to have any sort of heating
time
device.
For 8 minutes. You just pull it out and your mac and cheese
is
ready to go.
It's got
done.
some salt in it.
Brined.
Nice. Lovely. British Airways serves KFC on transatlantic flight after catering snafu.
By the way, this sounds like basically my heaven.
You like the KFC?
A fried chicken on a plane? Are you kidding? That sounds...
You can't order that on a British Airways plane?
I've tried. Every time I just get kicked off.
They don't say, would you like the chicken, the beef, or the vegan option? Every time I fly, there's 9,000 options for meals. I'm like, how do you guys keep all these different, separate meals?
How amazing would it be if you got on the plane and they said, sir, today you can have the KFC, the Popeyes, or the Roscoe's? I'd be like, give me the fucking Roscoe's. Give me the Roscoe's with a waffle.
You like that better than Popeyes?
When Roscoe's is on, and they definitely do not always perform. When it's on, I think it's the best fried chicken.
Popeyes is 100% on.
But
I'm not eating chicken, but these days. But
why not?
It's a long story.
The birds?
No, not the birds. Just in general, the whole.
I love me some fried chicken.
Sure, but you know what you're getting with it? You're getting a dose of antibiotics. You're getting a dose of growth hormone. You're getting all sorts of things.
The Mary's chicken, the Mary's Air Chill doesn't have any of that stuff, right? No antibiotics.
I don't know Mary's, but I'm passing on the whole thing. Thanks.
Actually,
you know what? I was actually, this is surprisingly good. At KFC, at a real actual KFC, they had a Beyond Chicken.
Yeah.
And it was great.
Huh.
It was awesome.
Sandwich? It was like a chicken sandwich?
No, it was some, chicken with some whatever their breading thing on it it was like pieces of fried chicken. It was perfect. It was perfect. The only thing is the next time I went back in, because I was so excited, I was like, oh, I'm going to get that chicken. It's
gone.
It's gone.
Like sold out, or they don't sell it anymore?
I don't think they sell it anymore. And it's like, why would you tease us with this? I never go into KFC. I literally never go into KFC. Sure. One time I randomly go into KFC and they have Beyond Chicken. I'm like, oh, I'm good. I'm going back to KFC. And now it's gone.
This is a terrible day for you. So this flight, I guess all the food got spoiled.
The catering cart had not been properly chilled.
So someone,
and by the way, good on them for them not playing food roulette and serving it.
Yeah, let me tell you that.
They knew they were going to anger a lot of. They knew they were going to anger a lot of passengers, but thank goodness they didn't.
Nobody wants food poisoning at 30,000 feet.
Right.
I've seen airplanes.
Well, they might have. It's food roulette. They might have gotten away with it because most people's systems probably can take a little bit of botulism and survive just fine.
A little bit of botulism.
You're constantly being exposed to things like that.
Sure.
I know. And mostly your body is great at taking care of that stuff.
I'm iron gut.
Right, me too. So I'm really happy that they just made the right choice and said, you know what, everybody's going to hate us, but let's not serve this food.
Yeah, I get it. No, I totally get it. I'm glad they didn't do this.
Yeah.
But I love that I'm guessing they sent the intern to KFC and they're like, get 600 pieces of chicken. And he went to KFC and had to walk in with a credit card and be
Problem is he didn't get 600 pieces because most of these people most of these people got one piece of chicken. So that's 300 pieces of chicken.
You got the wing. The one guy in the back,
tiny little
wing drumette. And you're just like, I'm sorry, I paid for a first class seat.
Exactly.
Can I have an additional thigh as well?
It was a $3,000 flight for me and I got a wing?
Yeah. was like a flight back from like Turks and Caicos. So like it was people come back on their holiday.
I made that up. I have no idea what first class flight.
Not $3,000. I promise you that. I'll take the over on that 100 times. I ain't flying to Denver. I don't know. You and I think disagree on the amount of chicken you can reasonably bring back from KFC. Like 300 pieces of chicken is a lot of chicken.
Well, yeah, but if you're thinking I'm going to get chicken for the plane,
I get that. But like
maybe I can hang around. I can wait a little longer and do 2 trips and get to and from. By the way, from my car, and I get 600 pieces.
The real story here is the guy that was behind that guy in line at KFC. He's just coming in for a sandwich. The guy in front's like 600 pieces of chicken, and they're just like, motherfucker! God damn it, Jane! I told you not to park the car in the back. We were trying to get in here early. The guy just wants a sandwich.
He's like, Turks and Caicos again? Yes.
Turks and Caicos.
My God.
British Airways? Yeah, fuck.
Exactly.
This is yet another reason why I take Southwest, because those peanuts don't spoil.
Okay, enough with the headlines. Up next, CJ is going to talk about why Elon's doing what he's doing. I mean, what does that mean?
I don't know. First of all, what is he doing?
I don't know.
That's what we're going to try to figure out.
Changing the name of the company to X, where it's changed now.
We're going to do a little history lesson on why we think Elon might be doing what he's doing.
Let's do it.
People keep asking me, because, we're influencers.
Sure.
And once we put the billboards up and people see us, they recognize us.
Okay.
And they'll be like, what is Elon doing?
What is Elon doing? That's a great question.
And my response is, you had Twitter, which was basically in stasis, and now it's a mess since he's picked it up. I don't really think anyone knows what he's doing other than him. Is my hunch.
I'm not sure he knows what he's doing.
Also true, potentially. But
kind of seems like he's making it up as he goes along.
So see, that's kind of what I thought until I started thinking about this more. I don't think so.
Okay,
right?
Well, I'm excited to hear your thoughts on this.
So I think it's worth exploring a bit of what we know of his past for context, and maybe take a couple stabs at what his plan, or at least some options, might look like going forward. Mm-hmm. And I've said it for a while now that I kind of get this. He's worth, $220+ billion currently? Mm-hmm. Throw in 10% of that at Twitter to try to build the thing that I believe was his dream 20 years ago isn't really batshit insane, right? It's not going to materially change his life if the thing burns to the ground before he gets there.
Okay.
That's my belief, but at least he tried.
$44 billion that could have been put to better use in lots of other ways.
Well, yeah, but he's not thinking that way. This is his dream. He thinks this could be a multi-trillion-dollar business.
Okay.
I already knew a bit of this story that was pretty interesting, but as I researched it, I came to realize that there's an absolutely fantastic story that I suspect our listeners will really enjoy, which is why I wanted to bring it up today. But here's the bad news. It's going to take at least 2 segments, I think, to get through all of this.
Okay.
First, I'm going to talk about Musk's original vision for X.com in the late 90s, how he came to merge with Confinity, the makers of PayPal, and how Musk was able to gain control of the merged company. Then we think
for 5 minutes.
Yeah, literally. Yeah, not
he trumpets that time as if it was, this very long-term reign. He was there for 10 seconds.
If you blinked, you missed it.
Right.
So we'll take a little break, then we're going to talk about the depth of the hole that Musk had dug for the merged entity in short order, and how his time with PayPal ultimately came to an end.
Okay.
I think these pieces all play into what's happening. As you all know, or at least I presume all of you know, Twitter is now X.
Right.
Or at least we think it is. I haven't checked since we started recording.
Because also he may or may not have the trademark.
Changed.
He may not even have the ability to name it
I'm pretty sure he may not have the trademark.
Right. He has the URL.
Yeah.
What he doesn't have is the actual trademark that allows him to use it.
I want us to hop on our time machine, go back, and talk about Compaq, X, PayPal, Confinity, and eBay. Pause right now, and everybody should just go get a big beverage. So they got something to drink during all of this.
Great.
Now, I culled and really stole most of this segment from Gareth Edwards' excellent summary of Elon's past, which is posted over on Every. I'll put a link in the show notes. And Jimmy Sony's book, The Founders. Excellent resources. And if this segment interests you, I'd strongly suggest reading both of them. In February of 1999, Zip2, the newspaper online directory service that Musk had co-founded with his brother, was sold to Compaq for $300 million.
Way overpaid.
Elon's share of this was about $22 million. His brother made about 15. Mm-hmm. Right, that was their first sort of real exit. Elon immediately began reaching out to old connections from his time at Scotiabank. He said he wanted to launch a, quote, financial superstore, something bigger than even Zip2.
That's how Citibank came to be.
Is that true?
Sandy Weil wanted to make a financial superstore.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
What time?
And his second in command was Jamie Dimon.
What's the origin story of that? Like what time?
Mid-'80s, 85, 86.
Here, users and businesses would hold and manage everything, right? That was the vision. Checking, savings accounts, mortgages, stocks, loans, insurance. It would just be this global financial nexus, this sort of mega app that users would never have to leave, which I think now you can look at it and go, yeah, I can understand that. In 1999... Well, I
tell you, in banking, it's a terrible idea.
Of course. But you could at least wrap your brain around this concept. I think in 99...
It was a very popular idea at the time.
Nobody was thinking necessarily that way, right? So having drummed up support, he founded a new company to take this forward. Musk had already become fixated on a name from the company from the get-go. He wanted it to be called X. He immediately buys the domain x.com.
Because he was a big fan of porn.
Apparently, or just, no, maybe. He immediately buys the domain x.com off Pittsburgh Power Computer, great name, by the way, for 1.5 million shares of A stock in his new company. That's kind of a crazy deal back then to see that like he was able to do that for just a stock swap.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. Banking is about what? Trust and openness. And X hardly connotated either. Musk, however, was laser focused on using it as the brand. He described X.com as one of the few single-letter domains registered before their use was blocked as the, quote, coolest URL on the internet.
Okay.
He also said, quote, X marks the spot for treasure. That's how he saw it, right? And that's how he thought others would see it, too.
It's not how anyone's going to see it, but okay.
That's not how I feel like not one person would see it that way. But he's like, oh, it's short and easy to type. And back then, short URLs certainly were beneficial.
Big deal, yeah.
Yeah. He was sold on this. His decision was final. And he's like, this is part of the deal, right? We're doing this. 1999, he just sold Zip2. He's already working on this. He put $12.5 million of his own money in. So he put in over sort of half of what he got from Zip2. And the firm's culture and goals were almost entirely driven by him, right? He was fully immersed in this thing.
Sure, he had a lot of money into it.
For obvious reasons, his advisors expressed concern over X as a brand because, they weren't fucking delusional. Like they looked at this and said, maybe this is not a great idea. Doesn't persuade Musk. He still loves the name. He's still running with it. His obsession with speed and disdain for regulation meant that X developers loved him. But those cause worry the financial experts.
Yeah, sure.
Because now you're playing in this regulated space and they're just trying to run fast and break shit.
Right.
At one point, First Western, which was one of their banking partners, discovers that accounts are being opened under fake names. And they're like, not our problem. Just going to keep marching forward.
In their financial services companies, they're making
In X.
they're actually just making up fake accounts.
So
that's a problem.
Yep. The finance team that Musk had built at X at this point, I guess, tried to coup Elon out, but ultimately it failed. So already from the get-go, you've got folks that are like, I don't think you should be running this thing. At the same time, there's this company called Confinity, and they're steaming away, and they are literally across the road. I think at one point they actually were in the same building.
Yeah, no, same, right across the street.
This was the brainchild.
That's what I remember.
Yeah, right? This was the brainchild of Max Levchin. And is being funded and run by Peter Thiel.
Yeah.
They were backed by Nokia, and they were making a way to, quote, beam money between Palm Pilots via infrared.
Right.
Which was a part of the story that I had forgotten about. I had actually forgotten that their initial play was to move money between Palm Pilots.
Right.
Not even IP, not even email or anything else. They were just trying to figure this out with Palm Pilots.
I think they figured out email.
They did.
In the process.
That's where the story's going.
So sorry.
No. You're on it. You remember this. So in July of 99, Confinity launches its money sharing service, which it called PayPal. At the launch party, and this is like one of my favorite parts of the story. At the launch party, a representative of Nokia Ventures, which was the mobile company's investment arm, quote, beamed a $4 million investment from his own Palm Pilot to Thiel's live on stage.
Wow.
So first of all, as well as I do, live demos are always super tough.
Risky.
And the backstory behind this was the whole tech team was just up for days, literally trying to make sure that this went off without a hitch.
Right.
Okay, so they pulled this off, which is awesome, right? Totally awesome. Here's the best part of the story. A TV producer whose camera had failed to capture the moment asked them to do it again. And
oh my.
Yes. And Max Levchin was like, no, we cannot do it again. It's a fucking $1 million of money moving from one bank to the other.
You give me your $1 million, Mr. Cameraman.
Exactly.
Then we'll do it again.
But I love that, that's legit how you know that it was real. Because if it wasn't really, they'd just be like, well, yeah, I'll just go back and reset the database and we'll be fine. They're like, no, we actually moved $4 million from a bank to another bank. But I love that some TV producer was just like, yeah, but my camera was off.
I was still cleaning the lens.
That's a you problem, buddy.
Ready when you are, CB.
Now you got Confinity running around with this sort of this PayPal idea for Palm Pilots. And then something fascinating happens. And this is another one of my favorite parts of this story, because it always amazes me where inspiration can come from, right? In this case, what ended up being the golden goose product for Confinity and ultimately for X was suggested in an April 1999 single email from a user. Not even somebody in the business.
Yeah.
This user was trying to solve a problem that neither company was focused on. The single email triggered a tidal wave of change, ultimately through both companies. The email was from a power seller on a hot startup auction site called
eBay.
Yeah. The user explained that eBay did not have a native payment system at the time, so they and other sellers had begun using PayPal for all their sales. Now, I was there at the time, right? I opened my eBay account in March of 99.
What'd you sell?
I bought stuff.
Oh, okay.
I mainly bought.
Well,
For me, it was like a giant fucking garage sale.
It's what it still is.
And I distinctly remember going and getting money orders from the post office to send to
when you
people.
had to send them money orders.
Yeah, because I didn't want to send them checks.
Then you had to trust that they were going to send the goods.
And that was a thing then, right? And you can, obviously that's a ton of friction to eBay. Now, eBay, I think, went on to buy BillPoint around this time.
Yeah.
And integrate it. But ultimately, they didn't...
BillPoint being another payments processor like...
At a similar time, like 99-ish,
like PayPal.
PayPal. But what was interesting was, so this user, this power seller on eBay, sends this email to Confinity. It was Confinity's pay by email function, which was like this total sidecar thing that they weren't focused on.
But super useful.
Yeah, and they said it made it easy to transfer money. This user wanted to highlight it as an option to boost their sales. And they wanted to include a PayPal logo on their listing. The image on the PayPal website was too big, though, and they didn't know how to resize it.
Oh, that's awesome.
So they asked if there was any chance Confinity could send them a smaller one. So if you think about the genesis of this, like PayPal became PayPal, the thing that ultimately fueled eBay.
Because somebody didn't know how to use Photoshop.
Didn't know how to fucking resize an image. How amazing is that, right? Like
that's awesome.
When I came across this in this story, I was like, this is the lead, right? This is the best part.
Thank goodness somebody didn't know how to resize an image.
Good News GIMP wasn't out there then, right?
Sure.
Like, so this dude, presumably, this human was like, I want a smaller logo because I want to sell more trinkets on eBay using PayPal. And that sort of led to this chain of events. Now, the reason PayPal, I think, was so interesting to users back then is Confinity and X both had these promotions where if you signed up, you got a $10 credit.
Okay.
And if you signed up somebody else,
$10
you got
$10 you could
credit.
spend on your payment in their payment system.
And that's what the user had said was that
did X ever gain any traction in payments?
Yes, absolutely. Oh, they were in a heated battle back and forth.
Where were they if they weren't? Because I only remember PayPal from eBay. That's the only reason that I know of PayPal back in that day.
So, and that was because PayPal filled that gap, right?
Yeah.
You had people that had this sort of pay by email feature, and it wasn't just that they could transfer money easily, it was that sign up offer. And even though most buyers didn't have a PayPal account, most sellers did. So the sellers could say, hey, buyer, if you pay me via PayPal instead of a money order, you're going to get a $10 credit. Your purchase is going to be $10 cheaper.
Oh, cool.
So they helped fuel the uptake of users. When this became sort of evident within Confinity, right, their customer service team forwarded it to the developers. The developers were like, oh, this is magical. It gets up to Thiel's desk, and they were totally intrigued. They're like, this is the path forward, right? You had Thiel, you had David Sachs on board now.
Pivot quickly because otherwise we're going to be out of money.
And they persuaded Levchin, who was not fully on board, to pivot the product. So Palm Pilots were out. Pay by email would be what the company would focus on.
Much bigger product.
Absolutely. Now, X's own sign-up offer, which was very similar to Confinity's, also meant that once it was available, X too started to benefit from the eBay effect because they had the same sign-up offer, or at least a very similar sign-up offer. Unlike the Confinity founders, Musk had no desire to pivot his whole company to this new focus. That's why you didn't see it, right? Because they weren't really focused on it. Like, people could use it, but they weren't really focused on it.
I don't remember it at all being broadly available.
Yeah, I don't remember X until it was PayPal X.
Yeah.
And that's a very brief moment of time that we'll talk about here in a second. But Musk's eyes remained ever fixed on becoming the internet's financial nexus, right? That's what he wanted it to be. Pay by email was driving usage.
He wanted to be the Citigroup of the internet.
Yeah. Pay by email was driving usage in a way that no other service in the X family was. So he had to recognize it and make it an important part of the company. One of X's significant investors by this time is Sequoia Capital. And before they invested, they insisted that Musk step down from CEO, continued to run product strategy, and hire a sort of, quote, calm and trusted figure to run the business.
Right, because he's a little volatile.
Yeah, that might be an understatement. Elon, presumably begrudgingly, agrees, and they hire Bill Harris from Intuit to become CEO.
Okay.
Also, presumably, Musk saw little harm in this, right? He was still the majority owner of the company, so he felt confident that a new CEO posed no risk to his control. This was good timing, too, because in January...
Was he then became what, CTO?
Yes, he was leading product strategy, and I believe his title was CTO. The timing on this was great because in January 2000, news broke about a security flaw that allows money to be moved between any accounts with just the account details.
Oh, wow.
So that's kind of a oopsie. Fortunately for X, this was fixed before the vulnerability was made public. Still spooked investors.
Sure.
But had Harris not been CEO, I suspect several new investors that X was courting would have just walked away, right? Because they're like, you are clearly not buttoned up. That was, good timing.
But always when these companies are starting up, they're not buttoned up. There's always a huge learning curve of things you have to fix.
When people's money and it gets lost forever, or they've got to back this up, that could be super bad.
That's why you start small.
Totally. They did not. It was Thiel's firm belief that though Confinity had the better product and greater market share, that they were going to lose the war with X. And his reasoning was simple. They were going to run out of money first.
Confinity was going to run out of money first. Yeah.
Thiel realized that a tech crash was coming and figured that both companies could raise another round, but that would be their last round for a while.
Wow, that's really prescient. He was right, but that's really amazing he knew that because no one was thinking that.
Yeah. And they felt that if they kept up their cut rate competition, because these guys were just throwing money at users,
Right.
that mutually assured destruction would be the only outcome.
He's right.
So Thiel reached out to X, and to his surprise, got a response from Bill Harris, right? The CEO, the new CEO of X.
Yeah.
Harris had reached a similar conclusion as Thiel, that the two companies were killing each other, and that yes, X could likely outlast its rival, but not without fatally wounding itself.
Sure.
So the two men met, and they reached an agreement. X and Confinity needed to merge. Now, when Musk was told the news, he fucking exploded. He did not recognize the sort of validity of the arguments being made. He agreed to let negotiations take place, although he insisted on opening with an offer that would see a 92-8 stock split in X's favor, which that ain't a merger, right? That's like a fucking acqui-hire. Now, it gets even more dicey. When Harris and Musk met, Thiel and Levchin, to present this, Levchin was so angry that he stood up and left. And away from the table, he told Thiel to call the whole thing off. Thiel told him to calm down. Thiel felt that time and investor pressure was on their side. All they had to do was wait, and X would be back with better terms. Thiel was right. By the end of February 2000, the two sides were looking at a 55-45 merger.
Oh, now you're back to an actual merger.
Right?
Before you had Confinity and X were going to merge. The new company will be called X.
X, yeah. Levchin was still unhappy, though. He told Thiel that he would reluctantly accept it. That was the case until on a visit to X's office, Musk told Levchin that Confinity was getting a, quote, a fucking deal.
Oh.
So this just pissed him off, right? And Levchin was quoted as saying, my blood boiled. And so I thought, this is done. Like, this is totally off. It took some frantic damage control on the part of Harris and Thiel to get Levchin back on board with the idea. Ultimately, Musk's contempt would cost X another 5 points on the split.
Sure.
Levchin would only agree to sign off if the split was amended to 50-50.
There you go.
Musk has never hid his contempt for the merger, right? Talking openly about his desire not to see it completed. He even said, quote, I was like, fuck you, we're just going to kill them, was what Musk was saying in an interview about his attitude after
But
Harris
he would have killed
confirmed the new
himself. It
terms.
would have been a murder-suicide.
Right? I don't think he could see past that, or he'd find some way to magically make money appear, but I was around back then. There wasn't capital
Right.
flying around. So Musk thinks that, he's sort of killed this thing. And he was confident that was the end of the discussion. He still held a controlling interest in X, after all. What he hadn't counted on was Harris's determination to push this deal through. The company's current funding round depended on the confidence attached to the presence of Bill Harris, and Harris knew it. So Harris went to Musk and told him to sign off on the merger, and if he wouldn't, he'd quit. Musk was furious, but knew the damage Harris's resignation would do at the time.
Sure.
And Musk later said, you're basically putting a gun to my head, right? That's what he told Harris.
A little dramatic, but all right.
It worked. In March 2000, X and Confinity merged with Harris as the CEO of the new firm, and they kept the X name. So now these guys are working together. At least they're not battling one another.
Battling each other $10 at a time.
Yeah, but lots of users, right? Lots of burn. It gets more dicey than this.
Okay.
Just 5 months after the merger, Harris was looking to stop paying customers to sign up so that they could slow their monthly burn.
Sure.
Now,
seems kind of important.
But Levchin, Thiel, and Musk all felt strongly and believed that paying the customer was the right approach. So Elon, having never forgiven Harris for forcing the merger, enlisted Levchin's help to stage a coup. They gathered signatures from the development team on a letter of mass resignation and presented it to the other board members at an emergency meeting. If Harris didn't resign, Musk said, then both he and Levchin would walk, and so would most of the development team.
Okay.
It worked. In May of 2000, Harris was out and Musk was back in as CEO.
So now Musk is CEO of what becomes PayPal.
Yep. Now Musk insists that financial superstore is the future. Thiel and Levchin are initially fine with this, right? Because Musk has promised to focus on
But
email
before
payments.
you expand to the superstore, you got to get one thing working.
You would think.
Amazon's got to be able to sell books before they sell everything else.
You would think. I think he was a little blinded by that, though, right? Blinded by the superstore. And Musk had promised to focus on email payments and to improve PayPal first, leaving the financial superstore as a future thing.
Good for him.
All right. That was a ton to try to get out and absorb.
Yes.
Was it interesting?
Yeah, it's very interesting. It's very interesting. Yeah. I didn't actually know too much of this story. It's not something I followed closely.
Let's do that.
And I do follow the world of payments. It's just,
I know.
It's just I haven't followed this particular.
Yeah, this was kind of like in the, not the darkness,
This whole story is full of players that I just have kind of
not followed.
Well, I just kind of a dislike for. They're all liars.
There's some good folks in this story too, certainly. But what's crazy is I was around during this time and I didn't know really any of this. I knew maybe 15 or 20% of what was going on here. It's pretty crazy to me that this has already happened and it's been a year and a half since they started.
Right. It happened very quickly.
And by the way, there's a whole bunch of other shit that I cut out that I didn't even put in because, this show is only 2.5 hours long. So I got to squeeze it all in.
Sure.
But it's nuts, right? It's absolutely nuts. So here's what I think. Let's go take a little break.
Yes.
Let's get a drink of water.
Great.
We got 7 seconds to stretch our legs.
Fantastic.
Play some music.
Great.
Come back. and we'll talk about what Musk did next and how that ultimately sealed his fate with this newly merged company.
Here we go.
Now, I want to apologize at the top for stepping on, giving you the opportunity for a segment, but I'm really excited about this.
No, it's fine. It's fine. My segment we will come back to my segment another time.
Next episode, you can do both segments. How's that?
There will be no segments in the next episode. It is headlines only.
That's what I meant. After the staged coup, right, Musk is back at the helm of this newly merged entity between Confinity, the makers of PayPal,
Ex-PayPal.
and his ex.
Was it called Ex-PayPal or PayPal X?
This time it was called PayPal.
Okay.
It was just PayPal. So we have Musk back at the helm of PayPal, right? This merged entity between Confinity and X.com. His newfound alliance with
Did they
Levchin,
call the company Confinity or did they call it PayPal? They actually changed the name to
I believe it was
PayPal at that
PayPal
point.
this time, yeah.
Okay.
So his newfound alliance, remember, he used Levchin to basically oust Harris.
Yes.
Right? So now these guys are buddies. That lasted about a month and then was gone.
Sure.
Before the merger, Confinity and X had pursued completely separate approaches to sort of code and infrastructure, and they were polar opposites of one another.
Okay.
Musk had set up X as a Microsoft house, buying and using off-the-shelf products and frameworks to ship quickly and keep his development team relatively small.
Okay.
In contrast, Levchin believed that while it required a lot more people and effort, open source software and Linux was the way to go. It allowed PayPal to scale and adapt better.
Sure, he was right.
Now, this is where shit starts to get nutty. Over the objections of Levchin, who's the CTO of the business, right?
Yeah.
Musk decrees that all new feature development on PayPal must stop. Instead, the developers should focus on creating, quote, PayPal version 2, a complete rebuild from the ground up using Microsoft products and services.
Oh, man.
Now, what's kind of nuts about this is
history has proven him really wrong.
Yes and no. I mean, in this particular case, 100% yes. At virtually
the case we care about.
At virtually the same time, though, I had to make the exact same call.
Yeah.
We were currently a cold fusion shop. We were the largest cold fusion shop in the world, to my knowledge, because they put me in touch with the largest cold fusion shop, and we were bigger than them. So I'm like, well, if you think they're the biggest.
This is what company?
This was at iWin. This was iWin.com. And we had to stop all feature development and move over to ASP. We had to move over to Microsoft because we had no other solution. We literally had machines that were filling up with memory in half a day, and I had to write a reboot script for all of them. So it was kind of terrible. Now, ultimately, that decision worked. We had a much different product.
Sure.
But it allowed us to continue forward.
Casual games, right?
It was casual games. Yeah, online casual games. But we had a shit ton of traffic, and we had built this on a layer, and it was just falling over left and right. This decision by Musk alienated Levchin and the entire sort of ex-Confinity developers who felt that it unnecessarily discarded the Confinity code base for the sake of conforming to Musk's preference, right? He just sort of threw this lightning bolt.
I'm not afraid of throwing code away. I have no problem with that. I just think he's made the wrong decision for the direction.
Yeah, absolutely. So the longer the project continued, the clearer it became that Microsoft had overpromised about what its products could do at the time. And again, a guy who was there at the time, I can tell you they overpromised a lot of shit, for sure.
Oh, for sure.
There were multiple major issues, including serious memory leaks and all sorts of shit that emerged during testing. Version 2 of PayPal simply couldn't operate at the level required to run PayPal, the existing site. And it was taking longer to rewrite the code base than Musk had anticipated.
80% of the work takes 80% of the time.
Yes, that's exactly right. That's exactly right.
And the remainder of the work takes the other 80% of the time.
Yes. Yeah. And then you just finish it off with the last 50%.
Sure.
The last half. Okay, so the deadline for implementing PayPal v2 and unfreezing product improvements within development came and went. In an effort to speed things up, Musk offered bonus bounties if key milestones were met.
Okay.
Kind of an ominous sign that despite those bounties and their efforts, the development team could not meet them. Here's where it gets really nuts. Musk doubled down on this plan over his CTO's objections. He set a hard deadline at which point PayPal v2 would be rolled out, ready or not.
Yeah. Kind of like the full self-driving car thing.
That's where I think this is going.
Hard deadline. Oh, sorry, I didn't do it.
No. I don't say that here, but you're right. I mean, that to me, this is showing sort of this mindset from 20 years ago.
Bad character.
So he also decreed that no provision for rollback to the Linux version was to be made. Once they went live on V2, it would stay live whether it worked or not.
Always a good idea to declare that with software, especially software dealing with money.
The technical term for this that we use in the industry
suicide?
is fucking crazy.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, I can't believe anyone would say that ever. I'd just be like, what the fuck are you thinking about? You have real revenue and a real product.
They're not making casual games either. They're moving around money. You can't screw this up. There's no room for error.
We were basically fucking off. On our product, you made virtual points. You could trade. You could buy things with those.
Right.
But we had figured out ways to cap that. I would have never allowed this to happen. That's insane to say that. Like, we did freeze feature development, which pissed a bunch of people off, but we fixed it in the order of like a week and a half and got it back up and running. Like, away we went. In addition to alienating many on the development team, Musk had no intention of letting them focus on the pay by email market, right? Or really letting PayPal be PayPal.
Right.
Remember, his goal was
the most important thing that they were doing. He didn't want to do
the thing that made them money, right? Like the only thing that they really had. And remember that his goal was to create a global financial nexus. So PayPal needed to be subsumed and used to drive the uptake of X's other financial services. That was the sole value he saw in the company, in PayPal.
Okay.
Or at least in the acquisition of Confinity. To this end, Musk ordered that the PayPal.com URL be redirected to X.com and a full rebrand of PayPal begin. The overhaul included the replacing of PayPal's name with X PayPal and its logos.
Because they're formerly PayPal, they're no longer PayPal?
Yeah, that's actually
X
funny.
PayPal?
I believe this was them introducing X into the mix. My assumption is that ultimately PayPal would be dropped and it would be just X.
Okay.
Now, I distinctly remember this time. I remember going to PayPal probably for some eBay transaction and being like, what the fuck is X PayPal?
Sure.
Because it was X-PayPal, which to me as a nerd, what does that look like to you? It looks like an HTTP header to me.
Sure.
And I was like, what the fuck? Wait, X, like you're no longer PayPal? What does X PayPal mean? Why are you not PayPal? It broke my brain. I remember at the time, and I moved on with my life. These decisions horrified many.
I was just hearing doors creak open for competitors to come in and take over.
Totally.
It didn't happen, but they could have.
Well, it didn't happen because some people reacted, and that's what we're going to talk about here. No, you're 100% right. So these decisions horrified many on the product and marketing teams, including the head of payments, Reid Hoffman. Mm-hmm. They had all become critically aware of what their eBay users, on whom their perceived path to profit almost entirely depended, wanted, and they didn't want X. They didn't want the financial superstore. They wanted payments by email. Around this time, the PayPal strategy analyst, Vivian Go, who had led a branding survey with users, recalled just how badly X tested whenever focus groups were run.
Oh, that's awesome.
She said again and again the theme of, oh God, I wouldn't trust this website.
Right.
It's an adult website and I just could not trust it.
It does sound like it's an adult website. That's exactly right.
And this is in 2000. So that's what she told Jimmy Soni in his interview for the book Founders.
Yeah.
And Musk ignored the focus group evidence and insisted that they push ahead with the changes. Mm-hmm. So again, the universe and your team, which should be infinitely smarter than you, is telling you, please don't do this.
Screaming, don't do this.
This is a terrible idea. And it's like, yeah, what do they know? Right? Like, I'm an innovator. I'm gonna keep going. Here's what's also sort of crazy to me in this story. So amazingly, all the issues with development and product and marketing that we're talking about, they weren't enough to topple Musk from power. Ironically, it was the other financial services he was so keen to push that played the final part in Musk's downfall.
Okay.
From its launch, Musk insisted on a culture of growth over verification for X's financial services.
Okay.
This ensured rapid adoption. That's great.
Sure.
But it meant that minimal checks were being made on fake signups and fraud.
Of course.
Once it became clear that an X account could be opened easily, granting access to debit cards, checkbooks, and credits, fraud became a serious issue.
Of course.
Big surprise, right? So these issues weren't...
This is precisely what's happening at Tesla.
Right?
This is such a perfect parallel.
Like history just tells you the future. So these issues weren't entirely unknown to Confinity pre-merger, but the scale was greater than many had realized.
Of course.
Fraud was also increasing, not decreasing, as Musk rejected almost every effort to deal with it that would have harmed growth. He was just putting growth in front of everything. In the summer of
growth over safety. Essentially.
Right. Well, again, where have we heard this before recently?
Right.
In the summer of 2000, X's financial wizard, and until then a Musk loyalist, was Roelof Botha. And they discovered that X's exposure and likely their losses were even greater than previously thought. Under pressure, Musk had agreed to sunset a number of products in the X range that extended credit to high-risk accounts. Mm-hmm. The value of the interest on that credit was likely non-existent anyway, right? And was the chance of ever receiving any repayment.
Right.
Yet Botha realized that both were still being counted as income on which X could rely in the coming months.
Yikes.
Now, Botha took the numbers to Thiel.
Well, by the way, we've never heard of banks doing this in any other place.
No, of course
that's
not.
never happened.
No, what was that energy company in Texas? They didn't do anything like that at all either. So Botha took the numbers to Thiel, who was already concerned about the company's finances.
Sure.
X was burning $12 million a month, and it had less than $70 million left in the bank.
That's exciting.
So they've got like 5 months of runway, right? Its ability to raise further funding was shrinking, and a potentially disastrous PayPal V2 rollout combined with this growing risk exposure might make it impossible. So Thiel decided it was time to act. Now, who was responsible for making the first move in what became known as the, quote, Confinity coup remains up for debate. In most accounts, it was Thiel. Certainly, once it was underway, Thiel was the one who ensured that it succeeded.
Sure.
But it could have been Levchin who made the first move, right? Sounding out Sachs and others before going to Thiel for support. What's crazy to me about that is that the fact that the origins of the coup are so unclear highlight just how many of the key figures within the company Musk had managed to alienate in his brief time in charge.
But also maybe people are taking credit for things in hindsight.
Of course. But a whole bunch of people, even in hindsight, were saying like, oh yeah, it could have been me. Like that fucking guy was an asshole. So that so many were involved shows just how concerned over the future of the company that they had become. Their equity was in this thing, right? This was the thing that they were building.
Right.
So whatever the origins, doesn't matter. In early September 2000, a plot to overthrow Musk began to sort of come together. The core groups of the plotters included Thiel, Levchin, Sachs, and then critically both Botha and Hoffman. Mm-hmm. So basically your operators, the folks that had put the business together, folks that have been there for a long time, they want you gone. Now in a dark twist, they realized that their best chance of success was to follow the same strategy that Musk himself had used against Harris. This is sort of the apex of this story, in my opinion. They quietly canvassed the ex-Confinity developers and staff that were thought to be loyal to Levchin, as well as any ex-staffers known to feel that Musk's grand plan was about to bring the company down. They basically looked for anybody who was saying, this is a fucking mess. Mm-hmm. Those staffers were then asked to sign a letter of mass resignation. Sound familiar?
Yeah.
Same thing Musk did. The issue, the plotters knew, would be winning a vote against Musk on the board. They knew that Mike Moritz of Sequoia was the critical board member. So if they could get him to side with Musk, they could probably get the rest of the board members, Hurd and Malloy, to vote that way as well. Mm-hmm. Moritz had to be convinced to vote their way, right? The folks putting together the coup. He had to be convinced that while Musk, with whom Musk had a positive relationship, wasn't around to spin the problems the company was facing. Ideally, Musk needed to be kept away from the other board members as well. So how do you achieve this? Not easy, right?
I don't know. I'm on pins and needles.
The plotters realized there was only one day on which their coup would work, September 19th. You know why?
No.
On that day, Musk was due to embark on his delayed honeymoon with his new wife, Justine Wilson.
Okay.
They'd be flying to Sydney, Australia to watch the Olympics.
Sure.
Now, this was the days before we had in-air Wi-Fi and calls and messaging.
Sure.
The plotters would have a brief window to act in which Musk would not only be unable to find out what was happening, but unable to intervene. It would grant them precious hours to work the other board members without Musk interfering at all.
Flying from California to Australia?
Yeah.
Okay, so they got like 15 hours.
14, 15 hours, right? So to me, this is like cold, calculated, and even mean. But if it's what you got to do to get it to work, it's what you got to do to get it to work, right?
Yeah.
So on September 19th, 2000, Elon and Justine board a flight to Sydney. Once the plane was in the air, the coup begins. Thiel and the other plotters go to Sequoia's offices, corner Moritz, presenting him with the issues and securing his reluctant support. Thiel then called Hurd, the other board member, and requested an emergency board meeting over a conference call. In that meeting, Levchin and Thiel laid out in detail all the problems with PayPal V2, the brand changes, and the financial risks facing the firm.
Yeah.
For Moritz, Malloy, and Hurd, the three non-operating board members, much of this was new information. They're not only horrified at the emerging state of the company, but also that Musk had ordered many of these decisions, such as the PayPal V2 code rewrite, without clearing it with the board. And I think that's a very interesting point. This is the whole, like, even my corporate governance, I'm not even going to fucking tell them what I'm doing.
Right. But do you typically involve the board in what packages you're using for this or that?
No,
is that commonly something
but something
you discuss?
this big, saying like, hey, we're going to rewrite this whole fucking platform onto something. And by the way, we are way, way, way behind.
Well, you might want to mention that. Yeah.
Also, like, something I think my board would want from me? They'd want to know if I said, we're going to do this even if it fails and there's no rollback strategy.
Yeah, well, sure.
That is fucking suicide, right? I mean, you are absolutely playing with fire at that point.
But there is a rollback strategy. There's always a rollback strategy.
This is the rollback strategy.
We get rid of you and we start rewriting.
Exactly. So you could argue that these guys right now are presenting the rollback
That's
strategy.
That's the ultimate
right?
rollback strategy.
That could have been a real thing here. Like when you go into something without we're going to do this no matter what, and all the testing is telling you it's not going to work, I always want to have at least one, if not two, safety nets. And this dude's saying, nope, we're going to do it live. We're going to jump on the trapeze, no safety net. Oh, by the way, we've never done this before.
Nobody does that anymore. The smallest, game on the internet. You have 3 different stages before you roll it out to production.
A lot of people still play loose and fast. Still see a lot of downtime. I just recently was told of a story at a very large company that has, top line north of 9 figures, who had a 72-hour conference bridge open for an outage they had at a major event. They had a 72-hour conference bridge open trying to figure out what's happening.
Sure.
It sounded terrible. Like their culture is kind of shit.
I'm not saying outages don't happen. Outages do still happen.
But it was because of a deployment that they should not have pushed out, had no backup plan on.
Right.
Like they shot themselves in the foot.
You want to see iterations of that rollout. You want to see it working flawlessly across several stages before it moves into production.
With no Musk on the call to offer defense, this board was left to listen to the plotters' take on the situation. Before the call ended, they were presented with the plotters' trump card, the letter of mass resignation.
Yeah.
So they basically said, look, the situation is fucked. If you don't oust Musk, we're all gone. So they put a gun to the board's head and said, you have to do this, right? There's no choice. Meanwhile, in Sydney, Musk was alerted to the ongoing coup by a loyalist. And according to Jackson, one of the sort of biographers of this, they were lurking outside the conference room in where the plotters had first gathered and sent Musk an email. So now Musk is aware of what was happening back home. He gets on the phone, talked to the board, and none of these issues he argued were important or mattered, right? He just said at the end of the day, PayPal does not matter. X had always been more than just pay by email, he insisted, and that it was all necessary to achieve this grand plan and create this global financial nexus. Musk insisted that if the board held its nerve, they could achieve so much more than simply dominating the pay-by-email market. So he's got his eye on the prize of this
that's
much
fine.
bigger
Why don't
thing.
you at least start by dominating the pay?
You would think, right? I'm guessing at this point, I wasn't in his head, obviously, nor was I in the room, but I'm presuming that he just couldn't even see that. He was just like, this is a speed bump I don't need to go over. I want to get right to the answer, right? I want to get right to the thing I want to build. Musk was notoriously charismatic when selling investors his dream, but Thiel picked that timing well, right? Because if his appeals had been made in person, Musk's appeals had been made in person, he may have swayed Morris and the others back to his side. So the full board conducts more conference calls. Thiel and Lutchen are nervously sort of reporting this back to the other plotters in the other room. Musk himself soon realizes the only way to save himself was to get in front of people in person.
Sure.
So before a final decision was made, he quickly books and boarded a flight back to the U.S.
15 more hours.
But it was too late. By the time he landed, a decision had been made. He'd be forced to resign, replaced by Thiel as interim and then soon to be permanent CEO. And here's the interesting rub. He didn't have a place to fall back on as the CTO role for him, which they did when Harris came in.
Yeah.
Right? Levchin was staying in that role. So Musk was reduced to a directorship and a seat on the board.
Sure.
So for Musk, he was just robbed of X as both a company and a dream. And that was never going to be good enough for him. So that decision all but confirmed his departure from X soon thereafter. So he was just not just out as CEO, he was just out of the business.
Sure.
Right? Just done.
Honestly, it sounds like he should have been out of the business.
Well, that as I think...
It looks like he's making every call exact. I mean, history certainly acknowledges what I'm saying here. He was making every call exactly backwards.
Well, yes and no. He definitely seemed to be doing a whole bunch of things that were wrong. Now, could it have succeeded? I don't know. Maybe. A bunch of crazy shit came out of that. Personally, I don't think it would have. But if it could have, they could have been the first $1 trillion company.
With 5 months of runway, they would not have succeeded. They would have gone under.
5 months of runway and no
not long enough.
No clarity on financing. And,
right.
The hedge fund guy
code that doesn't work.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and no backup plan. Later, Musk has described the plotters in this as, quote, sneaky backstabbing bastards, right? At the time, and to Musk's credit, he recognized that going down with a fight would only bring the company and ultimately his investment down with him.
Sure.
Thiel ultimately pivoted the company to focus entirely on PayPal, discontinue X's financial services, and address fraud. X, or rather PayPal as the company was soon renamed, became a huge success.
Yeah.
Its sale for $1.5 billion to eBay in 2002 granted Musk as a shareholder a far larger payday than he earned for Zip2.
Oh, of course.
Jumpstarting many of his other ventures. Musk and Thiel worked together again later, with Thiel as one of SpaceX's initial backers. And Musk has always acknowledged that financially, PayPal's pivot was a win.
Yeah.
But noticeably absent in any of the interviews in which Musk talks about his departure from X, however, is any acceptance that his grand plan wouldn't have worked. And Edwards says this best. He's the gentleman that has the post on Ever. Lurking at the end of his sentence is always a verbal ellipsis, the suggestion that if the plotters had trusted him, the rewards would have been even greater, and they would have built a financial nexus that would now dominate the digital world. So while that was a lot of backstory, I think it provides some sort of solid context for where Elon's motivation to make Twitter and X.com comes from. Right? To him, I think this is the one that got away.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you buy SoFi or something that's already
something related?
Yeah, something that's already got a platform in place as opposed to Twitter. Now,
building the platform, I think, especially in 2023, doesn't sound that hard. Doesn't sound that complicated.
Yeah, but crossover of Twitter users to
the user base is wrong. The user base is wrong.
So I'm certainly no expert on what was in his brain when he was throwing out ideas to buy Twitter. But I wonder if it's just as simple, because I'm a big believer in Occam's razor.
Make it as simple as possible, but no more simple.
Well, the most explanations are the simplest of ones for anything that happens. And he might have been just kicking around ideas like, I wonder if I bought Twitter. Like, Twitter was kind of a mess at the time, not as big of it as it is now. What if I just bought it? What would the number be? And like at some point, a number came out of $44 billion, and then that had to stick. And that's like, well, shit, now you're stuck with this thing.
$44 billion was based on a marijuana joke.
Was it really?
Yeah.
Is that where it came from?
$54.20. 420.
420.
Yeah.
That's right. I did forget about that. Yeah, but but the number was rooted in, like, above where they were trading. Like, they were trading.
Oh, sure.
In this story, to me, there's a lot of things that happened here 20 years ago that seem to be at least congruent to what we're seeing now. I got to believe this
The bid for Twitter did not seem well thought through.
Oh, I don't think it was at all. Right. I mean, look at the bid, the retraction, the lawsuit.
Right,
they're like,
right.
oh, no, just kidding. I'll actually buy it.
Just kidding. You have no choice but to buy it. So there's that too.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Thanks for your kind offer. Turns out you're going to do this or just pay us a couple $1 billion in fines and fees. Your choice.
It's fun to shoot your mouth off when you shoot it off on a piece of paper that you actually sign.
Totally.
There is something to that.
Yeah. And it's got to stick. But just seeing X.com is this thing that he believed to be this massive opportunity.
Yeah.
That I got to believe he believes still isn't in the marketplace and he can still build. The one that got away, all these crazy, like relatively aggressive coups.
Yeah.
I mean, the one, at least from the reading I've done.
I do think banking is ripe for disruption.
Sure.
I don't think he's wrong there.
Which I don't disagree with. Now, whether or not this is the right approach, who knows? I still got to say, though, the name hasn't gotten any better. Like,
no,
Elon, I've got hundreds of domain names I've been saying for 20 years that I think are quote unquote good. None of them are going to make a business. Mm-hmm. So that's my origin story for PayPal and X and Confinity. I thought it was really fun and always fun to talk about some coups during your honeymoon.
All right, we have to get out of here, but quickly before we do, have you seen or read anything good this last week?
Well, yes, and this isn't going to surprise you. It's the book The Founders by Jimmy Sani.
That does not surprise me.
It's crazy. I haven't read PayPal Wars, which was the one that was written about 10 years ago.
Yeah.
But it also looks pretty compelling. I'm going to read that in next. But what's bonkers about this is, like, how has this not been made into a film?
Everything's
like,
it will be. Everything's being made.
Right?
The BlackBerry story was made into a film. The Tetris story was made into a film. And by the way, in seeing both of those films, I went, how were these not made into films earlier?
Yeah, right? They're great.
They were both great.
Yeah, how about you? What have you seen?
Hijack, starring Idris Elba. He's a talented business negotiator who must use his skills to broker a successful, peaceful end to a hijacking of a 7-hour flight from Dubai to London. Every episode is in real time. It's on Apple TV+.
Is that
great fun?
It's not based on a true story, right?
Like, it is not.
That's amazing. Yeah. And it's sort of like a 20...
It's just a pot boiler, and you kind of feel the pot, starting to simmer and lose its boil, and then they do something to bring it back up to a boil.
Sure.
So, whatever. But it's still fun.
It's like a similar format to 24, where like each one is, like you said, in real time.
Yeah, only
That's cool.
it's 7 hours or 8 hours, whatever it is.
That's great.
Not 24.
I'll check it out.
That's the episode.
Thanks for joining us for all this nonsense. A truly terrible podcast from The Awful Company. Visit us on the web at nonsense.productions. I'm Steve Little.
I'm Jeff Park.
If you like this program, please follow, download, subscribe, and like at Apple, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, our favorite Overcast, or wherever you get your podcasts from.
Podcastindex.org. Special thanks to our floor director, Steve Warwick.
Oh, thanks, Steve. We'll be here every Thursday morning for more nonsense. Please join us.